President Donald Trump today vowed to impose a 200% tariff on John Deere's imports.
All right, people, buckle up, because this is huge. John Deere just pulled a move so bold, so game-changing, that it not only shook the farming industry, but also practically flipped the whole Wall Street table. And the fallout is a jaw-dropping $34.05 billion wiped from the US farming sector, just like that. Now, the question on everyone's mind is, why? What's happening behind closed doors at John Deere that led to this seismic decision? And more importantly, who's paying the price? Spoiler alert, it's not the executives in their glass towers. No, it's the farmers. The backbone of America's food supply is left scrambling in the wake of this corporate earthquake. The green Goliath just blinked, and everything broke. Imagine this. You've spent your entire life building something. Your farm, your legacy, your way of life. Then, in the blink of an eye, it's slipping through your fingers all at once. Not because of drought, not because of bad luck, but because a multi-billion-dollar corporation just decided to change the rules of the game. This isn't some conspiracy theory. This is happening right now, and at the center of it all is the giant John Deere. For decades, John Deere has been a symbol of American agriculture. That iconic green and yellow has been as much a part of farming as the land itself. But beneath the surface of this trusted brand lies something far more sinister, because while farmers were busy growing crops, John Deere was busy tightening its grip on their loyal customers. It all started with a software update. Sounds harmless, right? Except this wasn't your average bug fix update. This was the moment everything changed. Because with this update, John Deere did something unthinkable. They locked farmers out of their own tractors. Yeah, you heard that right. If a John Deere tractor breaks down, the person who owns it, the person who paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for it, suddenly has no power to fix it. Why? Because John Deere controls the software. Every modern Deere machine is loaded with proprietary technology, meaning unless you go through them or one of their authorized dealers, your tractor is just a very expensive lawn ornament. And this is what pushed everything over the edge. Picture this. You're in the middle of harvest season, where every second counts. Your tractor breaks down. Because let's be real, it's an impossibility to avoid such incidents. However, instead of grabbing your tools, fixing the issue, and getting back to work like you are used to, you're stuck. You call an authorized John Deere technician. They tell you it's a 2-week wait, maybe longer. And when do they finally show up? The bill is most definitely sky high. Now, what happens to your crops in the meantime? What happens to your livelihood? This isn't just an inconvenience. This is a full-blown crisis. Because farmers aren't just losing money on repairs. They're losing everything. The ability to work, the ability to stay afloat, and in some cases, even the ability to keep their farms at all. Over 140,000 farms have vanished in the last 5 years. Land that's been in families for generations is disappearing. And while there are plenty of reasons for that, one thing is clear: John Deere's stranglehold on the industry is making things worse. But things only get even messier from here. It's not just about repairs, because by controlling the software, John Deere controls all the data too. That means they don't just own the machine, you know, the one you paid for. They also own every single piece of information that the tractor gathers. What's being planted, when it's being harvested, the health of the soil, the yield of the crops, everything. And let's just say that kind of power is worth a lot of money. So now the question is, who really benefits from all of this? It's certainly not the farmers. They're being forced to play a game where the rules keep changing, where the only way to survive is to pay John Deere whatever they demand. Repairs? Deere gets a cut. Data? Deere gets a cut. Farming itself? Deere controls the whole damn thing. And with holds like these, things were bound to go out of hand. Because John Deere thought they could keep tightening their grip forever, the farmers would just roll over and take it. But instead, the fight is on. The Federal Trade Commission and state attorneys general have officially stepped in, hitting John Deere with a massive lawsuit for monopolizing the farm equipment repair market. The accusations are of unfair business practices, consumer exploitation, corporate overreach. And for the first time in a long time, it looks like Deere might actually be in trouble. But let's be honest, lawsuits take time. And what happens to the victims in the meantime? Farmers are still suffering, crops are still dying, and John Deere is still cashing in. So the real question shouldn't be, will John Deere lose? It should be, how much damage will be done before they do? Because this isn't just about one company anymore. This is about the future of farming itself. If John Deere gets away with this, which I know they might, what's stopping every other corporation from following suit? What happens when farmers are completely at the mercy of a tech-controlled system that decides who succeeds and who fails? According to me, this isn't just about a few repair bills. This is about control. And right now, John Deere holds all the power. The master switch. How John Deere locked down the heartland. Okay, here's where Deere crossed the line from greedy to gangster, because this isn't just a repair issue anymore. It's a property issue. As in, do farmers even own their tractors? The answer will piss you off. Picture your car breaking down, and instead of popping the hood or calling a local mechanic, you're forced to tow it to the manufacturer, who then charges you thousands just to unlock it again. Sounds ridiculous, right? Well, welcome to modern farming, where John Deere's software locks have turned high-tech tractors into glorified paperweights. Farmers across the US have been caught in a corporate chokehold, unable to repair their own equipment without an official John Deere technician. And, spoiler alert, those techs are not cheap. This is where things start to feel like a bad sci-fi movie, because instead of getting a simple fix, farmers are facing days, sometimes weeks, of downtime. And in farming, that kind of delay can mean the difference between a profitable season and financial ruin. So, what do you do when the company that sold you your tractor suddenly acts like they still own it? You get creative. Enter the underground world of black market tractor fixes. Yeah, you heard that right. Farmers are literally hacking their own tractors just to keep their livelihoods afloat. Some are using software from Ukraine, others are relying on bootleg repair forums, and a few are even buying illicit repair kits smuggled in from overseas. It's like something out of a cyberpunk thriller, except instead of neon-lit cityscapes, it's cornfields and wheat farms. One farmer, who we'll call Jake, described his frustration after his John Deere tractor locked up right before harvest. He found himself in a desperate situation. Either wait 2 weeks for an official repair or find another way. He stumbled onto an online forum, connected with a guy from Eastern Europe, and within a day, he had a hacked software patch that got his tractor running again. And here's the wild part. Jake's not alone. There's an entire underground repair economy thriving right under John Deere's nose, with farmers trading USB sticks and logging codes like some kind of modern-day Prohibition-era speakeasy. But let's take a step back and reflect. Why is this even happening? How did John Deere go from being a trusted name in American farming to a tech overlord controlling tractors remotely? The answer lies in something called the master switch. You see, modern tractors aren't just engines and wheels anymore. They're rolling computers. And John Deere holds the keys to the kingdom. Every tractor is loaded with proprietary software that John Deere alone controls. The moment something goes wrong, that software can lock a farmer out, effectively bricking their machine until a John Deere technician intervenes. And if you dare to tinker with it yourself, well, you might just void your warranty or even face legal trouble. And that's where things get even more frustrating for the farmers. Farmers aren't mad just because their tractors are breaking down. They're mad because they're being told they don't have the right to fix their own machines. Imagine spending $500,000 on a piece of equipment only to be told that you don't actually own it in the way you think you do. That's the reality American farmers are waking up to. But here's the real kicker. This isn't just about tractors. This is part of a much bigger war over the right to repair. Farmers, mechanics, and consumers alike are fighting against corporations that want to keep repair rights locked up tighter than Fort Knox. John Deere has argued that their software controls are meant to protect farmers from tampering with their machines. But let's be real, this isn't about safety, it's about control. The more they control who can fix a machine, the more money they make. Simple as that. Now, let's talk numbers because this isn't just affecting a handful of farmers. The US has lost over 140 farms in the last 5 years, and part of that struggle comes down to the ever-increasing cost of maintaining and repairing equipment. Farmers aren't just being squeezed by the weather or fluctuating crop prices. they're being squeezed by the very companies that claim to support them. So what happens next? Well, some states are already pushing back with the right to repair laws. Over the past few years, legislators in all 50 states have introduced bills aimed at breaking these corporate repair monopolies, and John Deere has been fighting tooth and nail to stop them. But with every farmer who turns to black market fixes and every new underground software patch that surfaces, Deere's grip on the industry gets just a little bit weaker. Because here's the truth. Farmers aren't just going to roll over and take this. They built this country from the ground. They've survived droughts, economic collapses, and every challenge Mother Nature could throw at them. And now they're taking on the corporate giants trying to control their way of life. The master switch might be in Deere's hands for now, but the resistance is already underway. And if history has taught us anything, it's that when people push back hard enough, even the biggest Goliaths can fall. The farmers strike back. Now, Deere expected farmers to roll over. What they didn't expect? A bunch of pissed-off Iowans with Ukrainian hackers on speed dial. This is the story of the underground tractor rebellion, and it's glorious. While Deere's digital lockdown of its tractors might have left millions of farmers stuck, literally locked out of their own machines, it also lit a fire, and that fire is called the Right to Repair movement. What started as whispers in online forums is now echoing inside Capitol buildings. And let me tell you, Deere didn't expect this many pitchforks, figuratively speaking, although I wouldn't rule out the real ones either. Now, the right to repair isn't just some fringe internet rant. According to PRG, right to repair laws have now been introduced in all 50 states. Yeah, all of them. From Maine to California, lawmakers are now listening to angry farmers, small repair shop owners, and techies turned activists who are sick of one company deciding who can fix what, especially what they rightfully own. And this goes way beyond tractors. Think phones, think laptops. But for farmers, it's especially brutal, because when their $500,000 piece of machinery breaks down in the middle of harvest, and they're told the only fix is a 2-week wait and a licensed Deere tech 3 towns over, that's not just inconvenient, it's catastrophic. So what are farmers doing? They're testifying, showing up to legislative hearings in flannel and trucker caps, sharing stories that sound more dystopian than rural. Like one farmer who said he watched $30,000 worth of crops rot in the field just because a sensor failed and he wasn't allowed to override it. Meanwhile, the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has already opened a formal investigation into Deere's repair practices. Citing potential violations of antitrust law and unfair business practices, the FTC says what many in the field have been screaming for years: if you buy a machine, you should have the right to fix it, and they're not alone. In July 2021, former President Biden signed an executive order directly encouraging the FTC to tackle repair restrictions across the board. The result increased scrutiny on giants like Apple, Tesla, and, yes, Deere. Critics say Deere's refusal to share repair tools and diagnostic software amounts to monopolistic behavior. Deere, of course, insists that their policies protect intellectual property and user safety. But farmers aren't buying it, literally. Now, here's the juicy part. While farmers and lawmakers are making noise publicly, Deere has been fighting this war behind closed doors, with deep pockets and even deeper influence. According to reporting by Vice and advocacy groups like Repair.org, Deere and its allies have spent hundreds of thousands lobbying against right-to-repair bills in multiple states. Some allege Deere's lobbyists have even ghost-written legislation to water down or block these bills entirely. In one infamous case out of Nebraska, a right-to-repair bill that had strong grassroots support mysteriously got stripped down to meaningless fluff after a few private meetings. Coincidence? You decide. But here's where things get really spicy. Farmers aren't just lobbying, they're suing. Multiple class action lawsuits have been filed in recent years accusing Deere of illegal monopolization under the Sherman Act. One suit argues that by locking down its software and refusing to sell diagnostic tools, Deere has created a repair monopoly. That means farmers are forced to go to Deere and only Deere for repairs, and you can bet the costs reflect that monopoly. Some reports say simple software unlocks can cost thousands just to get a tractor back up and running. And then there's the underground resistance. Remember the Ukrainian firmware we talked about in the last segment? Well, that's just the start. All across rural America, small co-ops and repair collectives are springing up. One such group in Minnesota calls itself Green Rebellion, a cheeky nod to John Deere's signature color. They host weekend workshops, teaching farmers how to bypass DRM, fix their own machines, and keep their independence alive. Think of it as a DIY movement with a cowboy hat. Some of this might sound borderline illegal, and yeah, it exists in a legal grey zone, but the support is growing. Because this isn't just about fixing a tractor, it's about fighting back against a system where billion-dollar corporations tell everyday people they're too dumb or too unworthy to fix their own tools. And that resentment, it's growing. So what now? Is Deere finally feeling the heat? Are they going to cave? Well, maybe. In early 2023, Deere signed a memorandum of understanding with the American Farm Bureau Federation, promising to give farmers more access to repair tools. But here's the catch. It's not legally binding. Critics call it a PR stunt, a smokescreen, a way to dodge real regulation while pretending to play nice. Still, the winds are shifting, and Deere knows it. The lawsuits are piling up. The FTC is breathing down their neck, and farmers once siloed and silent are now marching in unison. They've had enough. So, will this green giant finally fall in line? Or is John Deere just too powerful, too entrenched, and too connected to be touched? That's the billion-dollar question. But one thing's for sure. The farmers are not backing down. Not this time. Because this isn't just about tractors anymore. It's about independence. About who gets to hold the keys to the land. And the people who feed America are done asking politely. Wall Street's worst nightmare. Deere's stock plunge and investor revolt. So, is Deere winning this war? Not even close, because while farmers were raging, someone else was quietly pulling the rug out from under Deere's feet, Wall Street. And what just happened to their stock price? The company that had dominated the heartland for over a century, printing billions off the backs of American farmers, now tells a different story. Investors are panicking, stockholders are revolting, and some analysts are whispering the unthinkable. Could this be the beginning of Deere's downfall? And let's talk numbers, because, wow, in recent months, Deere's stock has taken a serious beating. JP Morgan, the same institution that once hyped Deere as an unshakable investment, just downgraded the company. Why? Because the farming industry is in crisis, and Deere's grip on the market is finally starting to crack. According to CNBC, analysts warn that farmers simply aren't buying equipment like they used to. Deere's once reliable cash cow, the sale of its high-tech, locked-down tractors, is drying up. And how does the company respond? Well, instead of making its products more accessible or winning back goodwill, Deere doubled down on its controversial practices, sparking even more outrage. Now, here's where things get even messier. Deere's revenue hit a wall, with profits sliding as farmers turn to alternative solutions, used equipment, repairs through underground networks, and even black market firmware to keep their machines running. And as we all know, Wall Street hates unpredictability. Investors are starting to see Deere less as a golden ticket and more as a tech monopoly in decline. Think Facebook after Cambridge Analytica. Think Tesla when recalls started stacking up. Once the public turns against you, the numbers follow. And it's not just about the bottom line. Deere is also facing an internal rebellion. Reuters reported that activist investors recently pushed for a major change in company strategy, an attempt to hold leadership accountable for their controversial decisions. At a recent shareholder meeting, a group of investors introduced a proposal demanding Deere rethink its restrictive policies and stop locking farmers out of their own equipment. The company, it rejected the proposal outright, but the fact that it was even on the table, that's a warning sign. And let's not forget the political pressure. With the FTC investigating Deere's anti-competitive practices, some are wondering if government intervention could be on the horizon. Could we see an antitrust lawsuit, a regulatory crackdown? If that happens, Deere's stock plunge could accelerate even faster. Meanwhile, other companies in the agriculture sector are watching this unfold with sweaty palms. If Deere collapses under the weight of its own greed, what happens to the rest of the industry? Competing equipment manufacturers and seed suppliers rely on the same market conditions as Deere. If farmers can't afford Deere's overpriced, DRM-ridden tractors, they also won't be spending money on other high-cost farming tech. If Deere falls, the entire ag-tech house of cards collapses. And trust me, it's wobbling. And here's the real question. Is this just a temporary dip? Or is Deere about to go through a full-blown identity crisis? Some whispers suggest a leadership shakeup could be coming. Could we see the board force a major strategy shift? A new CEO? Maybe even the unthinkable, splitting Deere's tech division from its traditional manufacturing. Because, let's be honest, right now, Deere is stuck between two worlds. It wants to be a Silicon Valley-style data empire, but its roots are in blue-collar, all-American farming. And that's proving to be a losing combination. And here's the irony of it all. Wall Street is just now feeling what farmers have been experiencing for years. The frustration, the powerlessness, the realization that a once trusted institution isn't working in their best interest. And if there's one thing we know about investors, it's that they don't like losing money. The question now is, will they force Deere to change? Or is this a company that's simply too big, too stubborn, and too far gone to fix? Can the farming industry survive the age of Deere? Now, here's the real question. Can Deere survive the backlash? Because farmers aren't just fighting back, they're building something new. And it's terrifying the hell out of corporate ag. When the average person thinks of a farmer rebellion, they probably imagine pitchforks, dusty tractors, and angry men in overalls yelling at clouds. But here's the twist. This new rebellion, it's digital, it's scrappy, it's borderline underground, and most importantly, it's actually working. Because after John Deere made its big, bold move, the one that effectively locked down modern farming behind a paywall of proprietary tech and authorized service gatekeeping, there was a moment, a big, deep, collective inhale across rural America. And then, something wild happened. Farmers didn't roll over. They revolted. Now, sure, not in the headline-grabbing, tractor-storming the Capitol kind of way. No, this is quieter, smarter, and frankly, it is more dangerous to Deere's empire. The resistance began in fields. Literally. Picture this. You're out there, mid-harvest, and your $500,000 Deere tractor suddenly glitches. You can't fix it. You're locked out by software. No manual override. No emergency backup. Just an error code and a corporate shrug. So what do? You don't call Deere. You call Dmitry in Ukraine. Who sends you a firmware patch that boots your tractor like a jailbroken iPhone? It's not just DIY, it's digital moonshining. And this isn't rumor mill stuff. It's happening. According to a 2021 report from Vice, American farmers have been sourcing hacked John Deere firmware from black market forums just to keep their machines running. Some use USB keys. Some need laptops with Russian language debugging software. It's like The Matrix, but with corn. But here's where it gets juicy. Because Deere may have underestimated one very crucial thing. Farmers talk online, in co-ops, at auctions, in dusty coffee shops. And slowly, a kind of resistance network has formed. Not flashy, not funded, but persistent. Some farmers are even ditching their newer tractors entirely, opting for the old-school, pre-software behemoths from the 70s and 80s. Because guess what? Those machines still run, and no one can lock you out of a carburetor. It's like vinyl records making a comeback, but with diesel fumes and mud. One Kansas farmer who spoke to Wired under the alias Earl. And yeah, of course, his name is Earl. Summed it up like this. These new machines might be smart, but I'm not stupid. And you know who else isn't stupid? The lawmakers. At least not all of them. Let's talk about Colorado, because in 2024, something borderline historic happened. The state passed one of the first serious right-to-repair laws specifically targeting agricultural equipment. Yep, farmers in Colorado now have the legal right to access the tools, software, and manuals needed to fix their own machines. And Deere, let's just say they weren't exactly thrilled. They agreed to a memorandum of understanding, but critics say it's basically legal fluff, a PR move wrapped in bureaucracy. The real heat came from public pressure and lawsuits. and media scrutiny, cough, FTC cough, it's not just Colorado. States like Minnesota, New York, and Oregon are now drafting their own versions. According to iFixit, a right to repair advocacy group, bills have been introduced in every single state. Everyone. That's a 50-state rebellion, with Deere right in the crosshairs. But the real plot twist, Deere isn't just up against angry farmers anymore. They're up against innovation. Because while Deere's been busy building a walled garden, a bunch of rogue startups and open-source nerds have been quietly laying new seeds, literal seeds, of technological revolution. Take the farming robot project featured on Hackaday. It looks like something out of WALL-E, low-cost, modular, open-source bots that can weed, seed, and even fertilize fields without corporate software handcuffs. Farmers can build them, tweak them, and, gasp, repair them. It's not fantasy. It's working tech. One team in France built a solar-powered weeder that requires no fuel, no GPS, and no license key. It's like the Linux of agriculture. Then there's Fiware, an open-source smart farming platform already being tested across Europe and Latin America. It's all about transparency, interoperability, and giving power back to the user. Or, in this case, the grower. Data belongs to the farmer, not the equipment. Decisions aren't outsourced to a corporate algorithm. It's the opposite of what Deere is offering. And guess what? The farming community is listening. Some of these new platforms are already being piloted in California and Iowa, quietly, cautiously. But they're out there, and they don't need Deere. Now, I'm not saying Deere's going to implode tomorrow. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. They're still a $140 billion juggernaut. They still dominate over half of the American tractor market. But here's the thing, monopolies don't crumble from explosions. They erode, slowly, from the edges inward. And if you squint, you can already see the cracks forming. Because once farmers realize they can operate without Big Green looking over their shoulder, once they taste that independence, they don't go back. It's not just about cost, it's about dignity. It's about not needing permission to fix the tools that feed the world. There's a saying in farming, you reap what you sow. Well, Deere's been sowing control, limitation, and monopolistic arrogance for years now. And what they're starting to reap is backlash. Still, one big question hangs in the air like dust after harvest. Will Deere double down? Because this story isn't over. Not even close. Deere could pivot, embrace right to repair, open their systems, and support innovation. Or they could go full villain, suing hackers, lobbying against new laws, and tightening the screws on what's left of independent agriculture. But no matter what Deere does next, one thing's clear. Farmers are done playing the corporate game. The age of passive compliance is over. This is the era of the farming outlaw, and they're not just coming for their tractors back, they're coming for the future. The new dawn of farming. So, is this the end of John Deere? No, but it's the beginning of something far bigger. A farming revolution where no one holds the keys but the people who feed us. The new pioneers are coding in barns, swapping tractor hacks at county fairs, and turning Deere's lockdown into a punchline. In Colorado, right to repair isn't just a law, it's a middle finger to corporate control. In Minnesota, co-ops are 3D printing tractor parts for neighbors, and startups like Monarch Tractor, they're selling hackable rigs with a promise. You break it, you own the fix. This isn't just rebellion, it's a blueprint. Because every time a farmer jailbreaks a tractor or a state tells Deere no, they're proving something radical. You don't need permission to survive. The tools, the tech, the future, it's all there. And it's open source. Deere sowed control. Farmers, they're sowing freedom. And what's growing? A system where the only master switch is held by the hands that plant the seeds. The fight's not over, but for the first time in decades, the dirt is shifting. And the harvest? It's going to be sweet. So, whose side are you on? The farmers rewriting the rules? Or the corporate giant clinging to control? Leave a comment and tell me where you stand. This fight's just heating up. And trust me, you'll want a front row seat.